Hello there, welcome back to the channel. I am Derka, and today we're going to continue with our Versus series, where we are comparing two Tier 7 Tech Tree light cruisers, USS Cleveland versus the Soviet Chapayev. Timestamps will be in the description below, but we will begin by talking about the history of the ships, followed by in-game statistics, and finally we'll wrap it up with some gameplay, where my division mate and I take the ships out and see what happens. Ultimately, we'll let you guys decide which is the superior light cruiser at Tier 7. Without further ado, let's get into it. USS Cleveland was commissioned in June 1942. She was the lead ship of 27 Cleveland-class cruisers, which became the most numerous class of light cruisers built for the United States Navy. She was 610 feet long and displaced 11,900 standard tons. Her wartime service record was long and illustrious, with 13 battle stars and a Navy unit commendation. She served in too many battles to narrate for the purposes of this video. Notably, she assisted in sinking 2 Japanese destroyers in the Battle of Blackett Strait. Here, Cleveland, a part of Task Force 68, engaged 2 Japanese destroyers delivering supplies to Japanese positions in the area. The Murasame was a Shiritsuyu-class destroyer, and the Minigumu was an Asashio-class destroyer. Using radar-controlled gunnery, Cleveland, USS Montpelier, and USS Denver opened fire on the Japanese destroyers from around 11,000 yards. Murasame was struck by gunfire, and a torpedo from one of 3 American destroyers also in Task Force 68. She exploded, caught fire, and sank. Minigumu was promptly targeted next and gunned down by the American cruisers before she could release torpedoes. Another notable feat of Cleveland happened during the Marianas Campaign, when aiding the American destroyer Norman Scott. Norman Scott, a Fletcher-class destroyer, was hit 6 times within a few seconds by shore batteries, killing her captain and 22 others. USS Cleveland positioned herself between the stricken destroyer, protecting it from further shore bombardment. Cleveland then turned her guns toward the shore batteries to silence them. Cleveland served in operation after operation, but eventually found herself in Boston after the war and used to train gunnery skills. She was decommissioned and unfortunately sold for scrap in 1960. The Chapayev-class cruiser, otherwise known as Project 68, was a group of cruisers built for the Soviet Union during and after World War II. It was based on the Kurev-class design. It was 659 feet long and displaced 11,300 tons. He was laid down before World War II, but due to the German advance into the east, production on the ship was halted in 1941. He was not completed until summer 1949 and eventually became part of the Baltic Fleet. He was outfitted with radar, one of the first for the Soviet Union. At this time, Chapayev was the largest and most modern artillery ship in the USSR. He participated in various exercises, accompanied visits by foreign dignitaries, and made several long voyages. Chapayev was quickly made obsolete, however, by new weapons such as missiles in the 1960s, and was scrapped in the 60s, just like USS Cleveland. Next up, we need to compare the commanders that we're using for each ship. On the American side of things, we have Mr. Norman Scott, who is a rank 16 Legendary 2. On the Soviet side of things, Nikolai Kuznetsov, also a rank 16 Legendary 2. Scott, we are using Isoroku Yamamoto for increased AP pin, Genichi Mikawa for increased concealment as our inspirations. On the Soviet side of things, we're using Norman Scott as an inspiration to improve that shell grouping, and Philip Vian for increased incoming fire dispersion. Both commanders have a very similar perk line. As shown by these 4 perks in the middle, they are using in common Burn It Down XXL, Igniter, Fixated, and Equilibrium of Power. And where they differ is Scott has Armed and Ready, where Kuznetsov has Punch Through. Armed and Ready offers increased incoming fire dispersion by 4.5% at max level, and also enables a warning indicator of the number of ships that have you targeted, which is a very important perk in the prevention of getting blapped. And Punch Through for Kuznetsov offers increased armor penetration. Next up, let's compare statistics of the ships. Both ships have a very similar HP pool, with Cleveland having 36,900 health and the Chapayev having 37,000. Both ships are quite poor when it comes to torpedo reduction values, with the Cleveland having 0% torpedo reduction and the Chapayev having a 4% torpedo reduction. Next up, let's take a look at the armor viewer of the USS Cleveland pulled from the PC version of World of Warships. We see overall armor rating of 25 millimeters all around the ship. Our bow plating is 25 millimeters and stern as well. Pay special attention to the size of the citadel on the USS Cleveland, and note that its armor is 127 millimeters thick. And of course, the gun mounts are a lot more heavily armored, up to 165 millimeters. Next up, let's look at the Soviet Chapayev. As we see, the same 25 millimeter front end plating, the same 25 millimeter plating on the side of the ship and the stern. Now pay note to the size of the citadel on Chapayev compared to the Cleveland. Also pay special attention to the fact that Chapayev has 100 millimeters of citadel protection versus 127 on the USS Cleveland. The Chapayev has a little bit heavier armor on the gun mounts to keep them more protected, otherwise a similar armor scheme as USS Cleveland. Next, we can start comparing the guns that both of these ships have. They are very similar, but very different at the same time. Both ships have 4 turrets, triple turrets, of 152 millimeters. The Cleveland has a reload speed of 5.3 seconds. The Chapayev has a reload of 7.4 seconds. The ships have very differing ranges as well, partially due to their commanders, with Kuznetsov's base trait giving increased range. The Cleveland has a range of 15.3 kilometers on that build, and the Chapayev has a range of 17.3 kilometers on that build. HE shell characteristic damage is the same, 1932. The AP shells differ, with the Cleveland having a damage of 3300 per shell, and the Chapayev having a damage of 3672 per shell. So USS Cleveland and the Soviet Chapayev have the same exact caliber guns, but they play very differently in World of Warships Legends. This can be attributed to the shell velocity and the trajectories that these shells are flying through the air. US destroyers and light cruisers have very high trajectories and slow shell velocity. They're floaty, they're good at firing from cover, but they're very difficult to aim at targets far away. On the contrasting side, the Soviet destroyers and cruisers have very flat trajectories and fast shell velocity. As a comparison, USS Cleveland has a AP shell velocity of 762 meters per second, and the Soviet Chapayev has a shell velocity of 950 meters per second. And this is why it's much easier to hit targets at long range using Soviet destroyers and cruisers. Moving on, we can talk about the secondary armaments of both ships. USS Cleveland has 6x2 127 millimeter guns, and Chapayev has 4x2 100 millimeter guns. Next, anti-aircraft. Currently, it's not a statistic in World of Warships Legends, but going off the PC, I'm just gonna post all the guns up here on the screen because it's a lot to read, but not only numerically, but by gun caliber, the Cleveland has the better anti-aircraft armament. Last but not least, talking about the guns for both of these ships, we can finish with the damage per minute values. So there are 2 different ways to look at it. One, HE shells or AP shells. Now the high explosive shells, while we can calculate them, it's really not a good indicator of the actual damage per minute because it's not talking about it's not considering the passive damage that you're going to get from all of the fires. So while we can, put the arbitrary values up here, really the DPM that matters is from the AP shells. Cleveland obviously has the faster reload, so it's going to have the better DPM. Now this is kind of offset by Chapayev's torpedoes. So, HE value, DPM for the Cleveland, about 260,000. For the Chapayev, about 187,000. On the AP side of things, DPM for Cleveland, 448,000, and for the Chapayev, 357,000. And this isn't the tell-all, end-all for the ships. You know, there's a lot more to consider, especially that the Chapayev has torpedoes, which we are going to talk about soon. Basically, as demonstrated in this video back here, the damage per minute of USS Cleveland and Chapayev are kind of ridiculous. Fire chances for the ship, Cleveland, 16%, Chapayev, 15%. So one of the main ways the Chapayev has an advantage over USS Cleveland is by having torpedoes. They're not great torpedoes, but they are torpedoes. The Chapayev has a 2x3 configuration of 533mm torps. They have a 74-second reload, almost 18,000 damage, 4-kilometer range, and they sail at 65 knots. Really, these are desperation torpedoes, and if you're ever within range of using them, you're probably not going to survive much longer. But it does give you extra options. If a ship is pushing you, they have to be especially careful because they are 65 knots and they hit for a lot of damage. Next, the speed of the ship. 33 knots for Cleveland, 33.5 for Chapayev. Turning circle, 660 meters for USS Cleveland, and 890 meters for Chapayev, which is absolutely terrible. It's Iowa-esque. Rudder shift is about the same for both ships. The Cleveland has the advantage with concealment, 10.3 kilometers, Chapayev, 12.3. Now the ship's consumables. Radar, as demonstrated here in the background, both ships are radar cruisers, which is their bread and butter. The USS Cleveland has American radar, which has a detection of 9 kilometers, a duration of 30 seconds, and a 180-second reload. The Chapayev also has radar. Its detection range is much longer at 11.7 kilometers, but the trade-off is the duration only lasts 20 seconds. Now there are situations where both are very helpful and both have gotten me the kill or helped my team eliminate them. And, both are very useful in their own right. If I had to say that I liked one better, honestly, having the extra range has come in handy so many times where a destroyer has, fell into my web, so to speak, because they just didn't think that you would have that far of radar range. So I would probably give the advantage to Chapayev on that one. Finishing up here, both ships have identical sonar, and both ships have a heel. The American heel on Cleveland has an 80-second reload and heals total 4,284 health. The Chapayev has a little bit better of a heal, healing 7,252 health with a 55-second reload. So, last but not least, let's look at a replay of the Chapayev and the Cleveland in a game together, and we can kind of talk about their similarities and differences and some different ways to play them. So at the beginning on a domination match, when you're in a radar cruiser, it's all about getting in a good position and hopefully catching a destroyer in one of the caps, using your radar and forcing them out of the cap or getting the kill. And that is exactly what we are going to try to do first. Both of these cruisers, we showed their armors, and they are kind of squishy, you could say. They don't hold up to taking a lot of damage, and that is why we are kind of pushing over here to the side and not directly into the cap, because if any of the battleships, any of the 4 on their team caught us out here, they would make very short work of us before we could get away. It's really hard to, or almost, you can't really armor angle against any of the battleships in this game. There's a Jean Bart over there, there's an Iowa and a Lyon on our side, and the last one might be a Colorado, but I'm not sure. So going into the cap here, I'm spotted, and we notice that it starts to get capped I have the longer range radar, so I go ahead and use mine first, talk to my division mate, say, hey, get your guns ready, let's gun down this destroyer. So it's interesting to note the different shell velocities. You can see that my shells get there a lot faster. And while he has a 2-second faster reload, even here on the second salvo, my shells get there about the same time. And that is the big difference between the American and the Russian guns. USS Fletcher gets away, goes around the island, and I need to be being very careful here. Luckily, the Jean Bart is not looking at us, but there are 2 big scary battleships over here. That's what a 16-gun salvo looks like from the French Lion, and the Iowa with its insanely good accuracy over range. So at this point, with these 2 big battleships pushing out to the side, we've got to start retreating, basically. Or kiting. And that's where Chapayev and Cleveland are different yet again. The American light cruisers, like I talked about in my very first video that I posted on this channel, you know, they're support ships, they take damage very poorly. They're good at holding down defensive positions, just like my division mate's doing over here, using an island for defense and holding a position down. Very high DPM, good HE spam, but without a battleship to tank damage for you or take the shots, it makes life rough for either one of these ships. Now, the Chapayev, you know, it has terrible concealment, and I think the trick to playing it is trying not to be targeted first, being a second line ship. And kiting, it's okay at kiting. It's not the best. It doesn't have a good, maneuverability. It doesn't have the best speed. It's very big. It's huge, actually, and it's a big target. It has a huge citadel, like we talked about. So again, neither one of these ships really are good at taking damage. So that is why we are sailing away from both of these battleships. Now I have 50 seconds left on the reload of my radar. Otherwise, I would probably try with my longer radar range to spot what is in A. Now it's possible he's, over behind the island and we wouldn't be able to get a shot at him anyways. But still, 30 seconds, we're not quite able to use it here. So we are kind of pushing over towards this side to get away from those battleships that are pushing up on us. As we're pushing across, unfortunately, we're going to be crossing the firing path of a Jean Bart. And that is not good for either one of us. And it's possible, well, actually, it's exactly what happened. The Jean Bart still had his reload booster, catches Capper out in the open here, uses his reload booster, if I'm not mistaken, and gets another shot off before Capper can get out of the way. So at this point, we are down by a ship and we are down by 2 caps. It is not looking very good. We are desperately trying to do everything we can to kill Jean Bart here. And we do get him. Z-23 pops up, and at this kind of range, while long-range shots for, any ship to hit a destroyer, these flat shell trajectories and good velocity of shells make it a little easier to aim, and we tick up a good amount of damage on the Z-23 here. So our battleships, I don't want to poke fun. They are way out here, even farther out here than I am. But that's another one of the things to remember about these Russian cruisers is they have extremely long ranges. The Kutuzov, the Shores, the Chapayev, they are best played at range, again, because of their poor armor and poor protection against damage. It would help a lot, though, if our battleships kind of pushed up towards A. They're kind of bunched up here. But we are, again, just retreating from the Iowa and the Lion. There's nothing else I can do. I just need to get away from them. Kind of get over here. and keep turning around, shooting over my shoulder, hoping to light fires. And this is definitely one of those struggle games. 25,000 damage this many minutes into a tier 7 match is terrible. Very, very terrible. But I didn't pick this game for damage. There's, plenty of Chapayev games and Cleveland games where you're over 150k or 200,000. And that's fine, and it's fun, and it's cool to watch, but I think that this video showed some of the different aspects of the Chapayev, and it showed its strong points with the long-range shooting, the long-range radar, the ability to kind of kite away. Luckily, our teammate gets a really good hit on the French battleship there. We turn around to try to get some shots into the superstructure. Maybe see if we can light him on fire and help take him out. Very fast battleship. Looks like we didn't lead him quite well. 2,400, not bad. So again, shooting, he's trying to retreat out, and we are pushing up into sea. We know there's still a Fletcher class destroyer over there, and I need to move up and try to get him out of the game and to salvage some of these caps. We're down by a ship, we're down by almost 300 points, and we're about to lose our last cap point. Luckily, we get the Lion out of here. And these shells flying towards me look very much like British semi-armor piercing rounds, which is not good for me. I have 13,000 health. And sure enough, it's in Edinburgh, and that's a rough matchup for me. So I'm trying to just maneuver as best I can in this ship. I know that we're getting closer to the Fletcher, so we go ahead and use our sonar, which I believe gives me a 4-kilometer detection range on these torpedoes. They're American torpedoes, and they're not very quick. You don't have a hard time getting past them at all. Again, we're angling towards the Edinburgh, but also trying to angle a little bit towards the Fletcher. The American torpedoes on Fletcher don't have the best reload, so I know that I am safe for a while. If he's smart, he's heading for the hills. And again, I'm just trying to not take a big salvo from this British cruiser here. We didn't load AP because, again, I really wanted to be ready to kill this American destroyer before he could get away, so we left the HE loaded, even though I really could have punished the Edinburgh there. So the destroyer's being smart. He's getting out of there. He's got the cap. He's got me spotted. That's all he needs to do is just get away. He's not firing his guns, but he's being really smart about it and really maneuvering a lot. We're having a hard time hitting him. I think that he has gotten away. And just when I think that he has gotten away and he's going to live to fight another day, that fire catches up with him. Now again, we have nearly a full health Edinburgh. My team finally sealed the deal over there on A and B side, so it's up to me to basically kill this guy. Because the way the points are going and with their 3 cap advantage, we're not going to be able to win this game on points. This guy needs to die, basically. So I'm hoping my battleships can get some good shots on him. I'm also hoping for really good armor-piercing salvo here. While I didn't demonstrate it enough this game, as of yet, the AP on these Russian cruisers is savage. So Edinburgh finally wises up, and he starts heading for the hills. If he would just stop shooting his guns. So he gets the right idea, and he's trying to retreat and get away and drop spots so that he can win the game. Battleships are moving up to take A and B, but it's not going to be enough. Smoke's up. And we have 4 minutes to catch and to kill this guy. so we'll kind of speed it up through this portion here. So first we move up because we want to go ahead and cap C. At the same time, our battleships are moving up into B and into A. But with all the combined capture points and even stopping their points, there's just not enough time on the clock to win this game. So I really need to track this guy down and spot him. So I'm firing a couple shots here. As you can see, the Chapayev has a gigantic detection ring when firing. And I want to be able to tell if he's out here in the open ocean or if he is behind the island. So by shooting, I can see that he has an open line of sight on me. And I move over this way a little bit. Finally get him lit up. It doesn't look like our battleship's going to be able to get a shot on him. So in the last seconds of the game here, we've got to hit our mark and finish this guy off. Luckily, the Chapayev at these longer ranges make it pretty easy to hit targets. And this guy gets stuck on the border wall over there. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Leave some comments down below. Would love to hear from you. All right, see ya.